We're going to move right along to LaTroya Hester. She's the Director of Communications at NAATPN. So she received her ABJ and MA from the University of Georgia, and she has worked in loyalty marketing, brand management, and public relations. She currently manages events and communications for the national organization. And so at this time, I present to you LaTroya Hester.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be a part of this kickoff. Lorraine knows that I reached out to her a couple of years ago when I saw all the work that was bubbling up from Wisconsin, and I was like, what is going on out there? These are some huge No Menthol Sunday supporters. And now, you know, the entire state has really become a model for what we would like to see in other states. The way that you guys organize, you get your elected officials on board, you get the community on board. And of course, you're working with your faith leaders and capturing all the young people. And there's just, you know, so few states that operate in this manner. And I'm so excited to just talk to you a little bit about how all the other participants on the call can do the same thing in their communities. And so with that being said, if my slides are available, I can go ahead and get started talking about how No Menthol Sunday can really be used as an organizing effort within your community and within your state. Next slide. So Del Monte already gave you a brief history, but this is our 6th year. Every year we mark it by developing a new toolkit. And so you can see already that our toolkit has been launched, and the theme for this year is Awaken. So I won't go into that brief history. I know we're pressed for time. Next slide. I want to talk to you guys about thinking about No Menthol Sunday as a social marketing campaign in and of itself. I want you to think about how to be really creative in the very way you're doing right now with having this launch webinar, just to inspire your creativity and your commitment to participating with No Menthol Sunday. I understand that there are tons of people on this call with this may be their first time doing a No Menthol Sunday event, and so I hope this information will be useful to you. Next slide. So we've got a couple of big goals for No Menthol Sunday every year. One is to promote campaigns such as Tips from Former Smokers and efforts that are local, just like Lakia's poetry, things that are really effective in capturing people's attention when it comes to the role of menthol and tobacco use in our community, but also giving them resources for those people who want to change the individual behavior or want to quit smoking. We want to be able to point them to culturally relevant resources such as our Pathways to Freedom. And so No Menthol Sunday is a great way to promote the campaigns that are actually working. And then number 2, we want to keep people in remembrance of really the ills of the tobacco industry, especially these days. So many young people, they've started to separate the tobacco industry from, let's say, these more novel products like the e-cigarettes and the Juuls. But we want them to know, hey, this is what the tobacco industry did in the past. These are the systematic things that have been in place, the way our communities have been targeted. And so this is our opportunity during No Menthol Sunday to put people in remembrance of the past, help them understand those structural things that have taken place to target our communities and how that's continuing to affect us. Next slide. And then the big 3, who can recognize what this image is from? Oh, everyone's muted. I can't have fun with you.
Mario Brothers.
Mario Brothers, that's right. And he is jumping. The big thing about No Menthol Sunday that we've observed over the years is this phenomenal opportunity for people to move from the awareness phase to the advocacy phase. So if you know anything about marketing or behavior change, first you've got to get people sort of aware of an issue, get them a little bit interested, maybe pique their interest, and then they go into a multi-step process before they actually ever do anything. But the beauty of No Menthol Sunday is that people move from the awareness phase right over into the advocacy phase because they're being prompted by something that is very near to them, which is their faith and their faith community. And so we love the fact that when people hear about No Menthol Sunday, they immediately start passing out information, talking to their community, thinking about making either a local policy change or a tobacco-free holy ground change, or they start working on real policies with their retailers, with their schools, and with their local officials. So it's been really phenomenal to see how through No Menthol Sunday, people are able to level jump. And so that's our big goal for No Menthol Sunday, to help people to level jump. Next slide. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the important role that faith leaders play in No Menthol Sunday. It's sometimes difficult to explain why it is that faith leaders can be so effective in this way. But if we think back to the civil rights movement, we remember that the civil rights movement was led by faith leaders. And part of this is because faith leaders have already established a great deal of credibility with their congregants and their community. They're already seen as knowledgeable leaders who can be trusted. The other thing is that usually within faith communities or churches, for instance, you already have a really good structure in place for organizing people. You've got your leader, you've got your building, or in this case, you've got a couple of web and online systems in place for executing a real movement. You've got volunteers that are already ready, got your usher board, got your youth team. You've already got the things in place that you need. And so No Menthol Sunday recognizes that we need to take advantage of this opportunity to give critical information that will help the health of our people. And so church communities and faith-based communities are so important for movements like No Menthol Sunday. Next slide. Now, when you get together and you decide on how you're going to execute on No Menthol Sunday, you're going to have a handful of key players. And I hope this benefits so many of the people on the call today that have never really done their own No Menthol Sunday event. Now, listen, everyone has in their church or faith-based community, especially in the Black community, a Sister Harriet. You know, Sister Harriet and them, they are the ones who we consider to be the mothers of the church. Sometimes she's a retired nurse. She already knows her community. Everybody knows her. Everyone trusts her. She's not afraid to call you out and say, you know, you smoke, even though the pastor might believe that no one in his congregation smokes. And all the young people are like, no, Sister Harriet, this is not the same. Sister Harriet knows what's going on, and she's not afraid to speak up and start to tell people we need to do something about this in our church. She has credibility both with the congregation and with the church leadership. So when you start on your No Menthol Sunday planning, you got to get Sister Harriet on board. Next slide. The next group that you want to get on board are the woke ones. Now, I love the woke ones because they are young, they are unafraid to tell you what's going on. They are always outraged about some issue, and they would love to get outraged about this menthol issue as well. They're going to be the ones that are very vocal on social media. They're going to be the ones that provide that creative impact, creating videos and memes and posts. So whatever you do, make sure you get your woke ones on board. These are usually your college students and your high school students. Next slide. Lastly, we have Mr. Coalition Builder. Now, it's so important not to forget about Mr. Coalition Builder. These are your Lorraine types, okay? The ones who are working in public health, they understand tobacco control, and they are able to work between multiple kinds of organizations. Not only are they working with the public health departments, but they know their city officials, they know their church leaders, they have relationships with everyone. So really, No Menthol Sunday can't take off in the way that it needs to if you don't involve Mr. Coalition Builder, as well as our faith leaders. Next slide. So we all know that No Menthol Sunday is May 17th, and we utilized all of our folks. We got Sister Harriet and them on board. We got our woke ones on board. And of course, we have our Lorraines on board, and we see what kind of impact the state of Wisconsin is doing. And we want to see that happening all across the United States as well. And so you guys are already aware of this theme. You can go on to the next slide. So the toolkit is available. Of course, it's available on your state's No Menthol Sunday website, but you can also visit nomentholsunday.org to participate, register your event, and download the toolkit. The toolkit is phenomenal. Of course, it includes audio files from Lakita's poem. It includes an awesome coloring book that was contributed also by the Wisconsin African American Tobacco Prevention Network. But we're super excited about some other additions that are a part of the toolkit as well. We have a great guide in there to do up to 30-day planning to get you started from day one through your media outreach and then your execution. We have a great social distancing tip sheet to help you come up with ideas for how you can execute this even though we're not meeting in person. And that includes really cool things like doing yard signs, doing sidewalk chalk, working with your local radio stations. But then again, of course, we've got your sermon topics in there so that when you decide to do your Facebook Live sermons or your Instagram Live sermons, you're prepared to do that as well. And then, of course, we have our church fans. They are still being ordered, guys. Some churches are keeping them on deck for whenever we go back to our physical church buildings. And then some communities will be delivering them to their smaller church communities. The beauty of No Menthol Sunday is that we have an unprecedented opportunity to reach some of those smaller pockets in the community, some of the what I call dirt road churches that still adore the traditional church fan, but we also supply those larger churches with those great PowerPoint graphics that they can use on their announcements as well. So some of these tools will be used later on as we begin to step back into our church communities whenever that date comes. But then there are also lots of ideas for people to do right away. Next slide. So this year, we've talked a lot about the impact of COVID-19 on the Black community. And we know that smoking is one of those things that weaken the immune system and make you more susceptible to severe COVID-19 and even to death. And so we've been very particular with our language here. We want people to think of No Menthol Sunday as a great kickoff for your quit day. And so if you guys could help us to promote this campaign, I think it would do wonders for the impact of, just to help us to address some of the health disparities that we're seeing as it relates to smoking, but also as it relates to COVID-19. So the big quit, the COVID big quit is what we're promoting, and we're hoping that we've reached tons of African-American audiences, helping them to think about quitting, supporting their congregants when it comes to quitting, and then pointing them to the 1-800-QUIT-NOW quit line that gives them free coaching and all the things that they need to really be successful in their quit attempts. Next slide. Whatever you do, make No Menthol Sunday your own. We already know Wisconsin is king when it comes to doing this, or queen, I should say. And they've done a great job. But over the years, so many other cities and communities have had press conferences, have made their own materials. And so we always advocate for that kind of a thing. Next slide. In the years past, last year, we sent out 20,000 pieces of material, and we've reached more than 36 states, and we know we've reached 2 million folks. We can't always capture every bit of activity, but you guys are in great company, and so we're looking forward to seeing these same kinds of successes for this year.